transformation, how we've transformed our schools this year. The last 12 months, the staff has really learned and grown as much as anyone. And our mission as a school is to foster a commitment to and a love for lifelong learning. And our vision is every day we learn and grow. That's definitely been true this year. To address the growing social and emotional needs, our building clear and shared focus has kind of been centered around those. Partnerships with families, supports for students and families, and engagement, particularly engaging students during remote learning. But like I said, this part of times have been the worst of times this year. We have experienced empty halls. We've experienced some vandalism, and we've learned that our buddy benches are not 6 feet long, and you cannot social distance on our buddy benches, which kind of defeats the purpose of having a buddy bench with someone sitting next to you if you're not 6 feet away. Even with all we've learned in the spring, there's still been a steep learning curve. Our teachers have had to learn new platforms and different changes to the curriculum, new instructional models, and they've had to learn to balance in ways that they never imagined. Our students have had to persevere through asynchronous learning. They've really had to dig deep to find determination to move forward during remote learning. And there's been, as I mentioned earlier in our Student of the Month, there's been a greater need for self-advocacy. Our parents have had to learn to provide instructional supports, establish a quiet workspace for school at home, and they've also had to learn to balance in ways that they never imagined. We've had some changes to our Franklin family this year. Students, at the beginning of the year, we lost about 200 students to Seaview or private schools or moved out of the area. We've had about 20, or we will, as of right now, I'm expecting to start the new trimester on the 22nd of March with about 20 students that had left us returning. As far as our teaching staff, in August, we gained 2 new teachers to the district in our R2 rooms, but we lost 4.5 teachers to Seaview in addition to the 2 that we lost last year. So that really changed the teaching face of Franklin. In October, we lost 2 more teachers to reassignment due to staffing needs. In November, one of those teachers came back because we had students transfer back from Seaview. So the coming and going of students from Seaview has really impacted teaching in classrooms. As far as our paraeducators, in August, we lost 1 paraeducator to Seaview. 1 was assigned to a teaching role at Roosevelt, which we are proud of her that she got the opportunity to teach. But last June, we lost 4 to retirement, and those were not replaced. In October, we lost a good friend in Patty Reifenstahl, and we've had the ability to hire 3 new paraeducators. So the staffing and teachers looks a bit different this year than it did last. In some ways, this year school hasn't felt like school. It's looked a little bit more like the opening scene to the Brady Bunch, with stacked students on a TV screen. In hybrid, it doesn't always feel like school when you have to stay 6 feet apart from one another. Humans are social beings, and students especially so. It's important that they learn to navigate and work with one another. It's hard to do that when you're 6 feet apart. But the year's also created a more welcoming environment. If you're out in front of our school in the mornings, you'll see staff greeting students, checking attestations, and giving each student, when they submit the completed attestation, the Franklin Elementary raccoon sticker that we have. Each student gets that, and that's the indication to teachers and staff that they have been cleared to come in the building. I had no idea when I developed and created the raccoon with the Franklin Elementary that the PTO was also going to adopt that, and that's appeared on a number of shirts, including one that was created around the holidays that had the raccoon with a mask on it that said you can't hide the Franklin pride. As I said, it's created a little more welcoming environment. We started the year, the first 3 days, with our family instruction and support days, and we had a 99% turnout. It was outstanding. We've continued to greet families and old friends as they return to us from Seaview or other places. We schedule a meeting with them to make sure that they understand the learning platform that we're using. We have had to develop a greater sense of the use of technology to keep families informed and students engaged. We've created a lot of videos this year to support families and get information out. Campbell Kirkman and Laura Eystone have created some outstanding videos just to entertain families and students. We've created some virtual assemblies to recognize and give honor to the achievements of our students. And we've recorded read alouds that the students can watch on their own and follow along with the book. So there's opportunities for them there. We've had staff that liked the family instruction and support days so much that they're actually asking if they can do that again next year, because they felt that they really had a better understanding and knowledge of their students and their families. Getting to sit down and meet with a family before you set foot in the classroom really is beneficial. We've had to prepare in ways that we've never had to before. Preparing materials not only for students in the classroom, but all the materials that are needed at home. It's one thing to have everything in your classroom ready to go. It's another thing to have everything in your classroom ready to go home. And that was an eye-opener for staff, but they really jumped to it and provided for families. And I appreciate that, the preparation that went into starting the year. They've had to do things like, it's one thing to say to a family, well, they need a quiet place at home to work. We set up at-home classroom stations so that they could see what it might look like to have that quiet place, that uninterrupted place. And we know that each household has its own unique circumstances, but providing a quiet place to work is important. We've had to be creative in our student supports this year. Our reading room supports about 48 students, about a quarter of our population, twice a week on our hybrid schedule. The reading room also provides support in person on Wednesdays in arrangements with families. Right now we have 8 students that come in on Wednesdays for extra help. Our Resource One room, our special education services, we provide services to 19 students a week. Most are receiving services twice a week in person. And Christine Richardson also works with 51 students remotely during the week. So in addition to those 19 students, and these are individual sessions. I can't stress enough how much thought has gone into this, because we can't bring 2 or 3 students together that have a similar need and work with them together. We have to work with them independently. Christine's also providing services to some Seaview and homeschool children. Our Resource 2 rooms have operated all year. We've got about 19 students that we work with. And our speech services, Jamie sees 51 students per week, pre-K through 6th grade. And one of the things that we're most proud of is, even through all of this, we have Jamie's managed to graduate 9 students from speech services. That, I can't stress how amazing that is. As I mentioned, creativity and what that looks like. The picture in the top left is our resource one room. The two on the right are our reading room. And the one in the bottom left is a paraeducator working with a student. You'll notice all of them have a plexi in between. They're working one-on-one with a plexi to provide services and the supports that our students need. Years fostered creativity, and we've taught classes outside when teachers have an opportunity. Not right now, but we did in the fall, and we will again in the spring. We get them outside so that they can breathe in a little bit of fresh air and experience a different classroom. It's fostered creativity in how we read aloud to class. Our librarian, Miss Hope, she on Google Meets, she can't go into classrooms or have classrooms come and sit in the story pit. So she would read to them on their Google Meets. And she's also recorded a number of read alouds. It's fostered creativity in how we get from place to place. When our youngest students, our kindergartners, started in October, right before Halloween, I went out and I said, okay, you know what Frankenstein looks like? Frankenstein walks with his arms, and actually Frankenstein's monster, because Frankenstein was the doctor that created the monster, he walks with his arms straight out in front. So I want all of you to put your arms straight out in front, and that way you won't bump into the person in front of you. And so they still do that. They're my Frankensteins. It's created a new normalcy in how we operate. Kindergarten rooms don't have the rainbow carpet sign. They've got carpet spots. And we work on finding ways for students to play together from their spots, because we don't want to develop just parallel play. We want interaction as much as we can. Here's an example of how second grade is using social distancing, but still teaching engineering and science and measurement through an airplane challenge where students designed paper airplanes, added weights, flew them, and then took measurements. So we're incorporating a number of things into one lesson. But we're still trying to do some of the important things, the things that make Franklin Franklin. During the holidays, along with the DECA, high school DECA program, we provided a number of meals to families that needed it during the holidays. Although I hope you'll forgive me for the fact that her mask is slipped down below her nose. She was just so cute on pajama day, I had to put her in here. On the left, a couple weeks before we actually got snow, our resource 2 room made snow in class. And that's a student that's playing with the snow that he made. And every year, right before our winter break, we have our winter assembly. And this year we couldn't do that in person, but we lined the street and people drove by, and we even had a special appearance from St. Nick. As I mentioned, we've looked for creative ways to engage students. One of the ways is through our Franklin videos, and thank you again to Campbell Kirkman, Laura Eystone, and all of our staff who participated. We've tried to be creative in engaging students through the technology, how teachers record and teach material so that it's engaging on remote days. But the thing I'm most proud of is the teachers have looked for options for students to demonstrate knowledge and show what they know. So I'd like to share a few of those. The first is a language arts creative narrative. This student opted to record herself as she read aloud her story, and hopefully this will work so that you can hear.
So this is my story, Terry the Trout, and now I'm going to read it to you. Once when I was fishing, I had a huge shape on my line. It was hard to control, but once I got it up, I realized I had a huge trout. I realized a huge trout was on my line. Then the fish started to whimper. My name is Terry, it said. Please don't hurt me. I have a wife, kids, and a family, and a colony too. I was surprised to see a huge trout and a talking trout, so I started to shake. I wanted to eat Terry, but when I listened to him, I changed my mind. I took Terry off my line and said, enjoy your life in the lake. He winked as he swam away. The end. Outside my tent will be on the next page.
So students, it's on remote, just having the opportunity to present their work in a different way, we found brings out more work. They produce better work, higher quality, and they love to share it. Our teachers have tried to, although our focus is on the core academics, they've worked on, we want to have well-rounded students. So we try to incorporate art where we can. And this assignment, the students were asked to decorate an ornament. This is how Isaac chose to decorate his. Something that a student wouldn't have had the opportunity to do last year, play the piano as part of his assignment. And the last option that I wanted to share with you is language arts social studies science assignment. And this dealt with the Native American folktale of the Chinook wind wrestling the cold wind. After reading the story, students were asked to explain what this would look like. And McHenry chose to explain what this would look like through a video. We have outstanding, creative, talented students at Franklin. And I'd like to thank Veronica, Isaac, and McHenry for allowing me to share their work. And I'd like to congratulate Abe and Holly for being recognized as Students of the Month. I'd also like to extend a heartfelt thanks to the entire Franklin family who make every day so much fun to come to work. As I said at the beginning, this has been a tale of 2 school years, a tale of transformation. Everyone at Franklin works hard every day to make it the best of times, because at Franklin, every day we learn and grow. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to come and present and brag about Franklin. It's a great place and I'm so proud to be here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lunt. That was very good. So good for us. I really enjoyed coming out to see your school. I thank you for having us out there. And I want to do it again now that you have even more kiddos, because we got in there right before the 6th graders came back. But I would, do any other board members have any questions for Jeff? Anyone? No? All right, then you're free.
I have a
Oh,
comment, just a quick comment. I'm really appreciative of Jeff referencing this evening the tremendous flexibility this year. Can you hear me all right?
yeah,
Sarah?
absolutely.
Okay. The tremendous flexibility of the staff this year. Not only are they learning a new platform and delivering instruction like never before, but our system has been very nimble this year to try to adjust staffing based on the flow and where families have needed to lie, whether that be Seaview or brick and mortar or a combination of the two. So in Jeff's presentation, that's one thing that we really forget about, how difficult that has been on a staff as just another layer of variable that creates a challenge within this school year. But all of our elementary schools, all of our schools have done a phenomenal job with that, as well as I do want to call out, Jeff and his leadership as it relates to, the COVID response. And we created phenomenal protocols in our district that I think have they've stood up over time and been proven to work. And our first, real event within the school district happened at Franklin Elementary School a few months ago. And to watch Jeff and his staff work through that was really satisfying. He an outstanding leader doing outstanding work. He was very supportive, very detailed in his work with the Department of Health, and it was a nice way to see Jeff carry out the work to support his staff and students. And so tremendous work at Franklin and across our school district. And I think Jeff did a really nice job this evening of articulating that in a way that lots of challenges, but also lots of celebrations. So thank you very much, Jeff and Franklin Elementary School staff. You've done a phenomenal job this year.
Thank you. It's a team effort, and it's because of the work that they do. I get to present, but it's really about them. So thank you for allowing me to be here tonight.
excellent. All right. So with that, we're going to move on to our CTE report. Mrs. Joslin, you're up.
All right. Good evening, everyone. And I too want to thank you, President Methner, the directors, the student reps, Superintendent Brewer, and Assistant Superintendent Michelle Olson for inviting me to share about the wonderful things that are happening in CTE. And first of all, I'm going to start out by just giving a brief update on some administrative type happenings, and then on to the best part, sharing about our kids. So first of all, next slide, please, Jenny. Thank you. There we go. First of all, Perkins grant was submitted and approved. So that was exciting. First time I did that. That $45,000 is going to be a big plus for our budget, and we're already finding ways to spend it. So I'm glad that was approved. For this year on the program approval status, it was our skilled and technical science programs. And so that includes all the T&I classes, which would be the shops and NJROTC, but it also includes theater tech, writer news, video game programming, video production, engineering, and yearbooks in with skilled and technical sciences. So those instructors have been busy updating their frameworks, revamping their curriculum, and I submitted that reapproval package at the end of January, and I just got an email back from OSPI yesterday. They're requesting a couple more documents, but I will get those uploaded tomorrow, and I'm confident that we'll be notified of our reapproval. And then next year, it will be our STEM and our health science classes that will have to be up for reapproval. So we'll have two programs next year that will be up for reapproval. Next, I want to talk a little bit about the CTE sequence pathways to graduation. This is a new pathway to graduation, and we are so excited about this. A CTE sequence to graduation, or excuse me, a CTE sequence pathway to graduation is a 2-credit sequence in the same program. So it has to be in the same program area. That's kind of important. And that has to include a dual credit course or a course that leads to an industry recognized credential. And so in September, when Lillian was looking at students that had seniors that had not met standard yet, she saw that new CTE pathway tab, and 28 students met graduation requirements because of the new CTE pathway. So that was pretty exciting. And then earlier this week, I sat down with guidance and we looked at, with the counselors, I should say, and we looked at the list of juniors that have not met standard yet. And just by looking at that list, just off the top of my head, we were able to find 20 students that qualified, met graduation requirements based on those pathways. So that's pretty exciting that we can help with the graduation rate. Now, right now, the CTE sequence pathways that exist are for classes in the same program areas, but local districts have the opportunity to submit or apply for local pathways. And so this week, I submitted 10 of those. And the reason I did that is because our health class falls under family consumer science. You would think it falls under health science, but it doesn't. And so every one of our students is taking health. And so it made sense to submit some local pathways that consisted of 2 credits with health being the 0.5, and then some other classes in our health services, or excuse me, not health services, our health science program. So that would be like emergency response, medical technology, health careers, anatomy and physiology. So those were just submitted yesterday. So hopefully we'll hear back about those soon. And then I'm going to meet with counselors and Lillian, and we're going to continue to look at the classes that students are taking, and we're going to look for patterns in which students' classes cross programs, and we will submit pathways to fit their needs because we want to continue to support that graduation rate. So I'm really excited about those CT sequence pathways. Another, started to say issue, but it's not an issue, but another initiative, I guess, that I've been working on is increasing the number of dual credits that we have. And so last week, I submitted, I think there's 9, you can see the course list there that I've submitted to Peninsula College requesting dual credit for the classes at our high school. And then also yesterday, I added one more to the list. I submitted a dual credit request for cabinet making. So hopefully we'll hear soon. The dual credits are great because in the CTE sequence that I mentioned, one of the courses has to either be dual credit or lead to an industry credential. So the more dual credits we have, the better. And then of course it gives us our kids a jump start on their college education, and they get it for free. So that's a big advantage. In fact, I always like to mention that my niece, when she graduated from here and she went to Johnson & Wales, she brought 21 credits with her to Johnson & Wales, and they took all of them. So you can imagine that made Chuck and Lisa pretty happy about the amount of money they saved. So those are some of the things that I've been working on. Now I want to get to the exciting things and share some pictures of some things that the students have been doing along with their teachers. So next slide, please. Oh, you're already there, Jenny. Thank you. So the first couple of slides, I want to share some of the community service activities our students have been participating in. When I witness these kids giving back to our community, it always just makes me so happy and proud. I even get choked up saying that. We have had several groups that have participated in cleanups. They've done campus cleanups, community cleanups, beach cleanups. Some of the pictures here include students from NJLTC, students from Fbla, and then students from leadership. And the pictures also show that students have been all around town. They've been at the Spit, they've been on campus, they've been on the waterfront, they've been at the pier. And I want to point out the picture on the top left, that's some of the leadership students with their instructor, Pam Helpenstale. And they actually held an ocean cleanup day in January. And they partnered with the city of PA, with surf riders, and with Ocean Conservancy, I can't say that word. And the items that they collected from Hollywood Beach, and they went about a mile west, so they covered quite an area. They separated them, they tallied them, and then they entered them into a tracking app called CleanSwell. So that was not only an opportunity for our kids to get back to the community, but they were able to work collaboratively with some of our community members. So that was a double plus experience. Next slide, please. Continue with some community service activities. The first two pictures, again, are of leadership students. Our leadership students are amazing. And they held a clothing drive. They had collection boxes at Swain's, of course, at the high school, at Lincoln Center, and at somebody named Steve Methner, his insurance company. They had a collection. And the students focused on collecting rain ponchos, gloves, and hats, but they also got some other donations as well. And they reported they collected over 230 ponchos, over 200 hats, over 50 pairs of gloves, lots of shirts and sweatshirts and dresses and jackets. But I just always think this is interesting to share that they got 2 dog sweaters as well. So people were helping with the pets in the community. All of these items were distributed to the Port Angeles Police Department, the clothing closet, Taffy, and then also Peninsula Behavior Health. So a lot of people in our community benefited from that drive that leadership held. The pictures on the right are our DECA students putting together and delivering holiday dinner baskets to families in need. And they delivered them to Stevens Middle School and our elementary schools. Jeff mentioned it a little bit. And thanks to the donations from the community, from DECA students, and from staff from numerous schools in the districts, they were able to put together 35 baskets this year. And those baskets, they were good. I went over and looked at them. They had full-size hams, they had rolls, they had corns, they had green beans, they had, the green bean casserole fixings. So they had the cream mushroom soup and the crunchy onions. They had mashed potatoes and gravy. They had ingredients to make pumpkin pie, and they even had sparkling cider. So it was really, I think, probably a big help to a lot of families in our community. And then they also used this project to submit as part of their chapter campaign. And so they just found out a couple months ago that they were awarded the top level of Thrive. And to accomplish Thrive level, the students had to show accomplishments in community service. So they used this event for that, and also community outreach, school outreach, and then some alumni connections. So we're pretty proud of them not only helping the community, but getting recognized for it by the DECA organization. And then the bottom picture is one of several students from John Drike's machining class, and they are creating the awards for the Frosty Moss Run. Students from his class used their machining skills, and they made all the awards for the Frosty Moss Run. And I think we actually had a team from our district, so they may not know that the awards were made by our students. Next slide, please. So this might look familiar to you, Sarah, since you were involved in this. The two pictures on the right are from the vaccination clinic. We've had students from NJOTC and Betsy Wharton's health classes volunteer every weekend at the clinic. And then along with the students, along with Betsy, we've had Tim Branham, Jennifer Rogers, Justin Beck, and John Picker have been the staff members that have volunteered. And in the picture in the middle, if you look down the line of cars, you can see Jen Rogers. She even made the paper when she was there that day. So our students have been helping with the success of that those clinics and keeping the traffic flowing and helping people get to where they need to be and not to get there too soon. So I know that the community is really appreciating that. And then the picture on the right of the NJROTC Color Guard, that's when they were presenting the colors for the Wreath Across America ceremony at the Squimview Cemetery. And I have to say, when Justin sent me this picture, I opened it up and it was full size and I got goosebumps. It's whenever I see our cadets in uniform, it just makes me so proud. I always tell them that Uniform Day is one of my favorite days. So lots of community service happening with CTE. Next slide, please. Even during the pandemic, there's been a lot of activities happening that weren't necessarily community service. So I wanted to share a few of those. The first picture is of the DECA students presenting Jeff Clark, Mr. Clark, with his teacher appreciation gift. And every year the DECA members put together a teacher appreciation gift. And this year they presented all staff members with a gift, and it included treats, customized face masks, Kleenex, tea, hand sanitizer, and a water bottle. And I will say that the masks that the students hand decorated were a big hit with the staff. It was really fun to walk around staff and see everybody, and we were all trying to see how each other's masks had been decorated. And then of course, I always have to have a picture of somebody delivering coffee, because I always like to rub it into all the schools that we are so fortunate that we can order coffee every morning and have coffee delivered by our students. So I had to include that picture. The picture in the middle is of the advertisement for the fall production of The Never Ending Story. I have the utmost respect for Patrick and his students for pulling this off. The success of this production was just a result of a collaboration between so many people. It was obviously the Thespian Society, but his theater tech students, his video production students, and lots of community members. I don't know if any of you were able to watch the production, but the performances were live streamed by the students. So that's where the video production and theater tech students came in, and people could purchase a one-time viewing ticket and they could go home, they could pick their time. There's multiple times that it would be available, and they could go home and watch it in the comfort of their own home. So a couple of the pictures that I included, one is of the video production students doing their job. They're streaming that performance. And then there's a picture of one of the theater tech students working on the set. And I'm not sure that this is out yet. I don't think I've seen the advertising yet. It's just starting to be publicized, but their next production will be student directed, and they're actually going to put on 2 productions. One of them is RUR, Rosam's Universal Robots, and then also And They Came For Me. And those performances will be on Fridays and Saturdays, and they're going to start April 9th and they'll end April 18th. So you'll be able to purchase tickets for those performances soon. And then right below the Never Ending Story is Darlene Armstrong, our health teacher, and she's holding a rolling pin. And the reason I have that picture in there is because she made that in woodshop. Before kids came back to campus, Tim Branham did not like seeing his woodshop sitting idle. And so he held a couple of classes for staff after school where they could make pens. Well, Darlene took the first class and made the pen. She wanted to take the second class, so she decided to make a rolling pin the second time. So that's Darlene with her rolling pin. And then the picture of the students holding the signs are our leadership students, greeting students, answering questions, and helping students find their way on our first day back to school. I can't say enough about our leadership students because they play such a big role in the positive culture and climate of our school. And I could probably go on and on for a couple hours just to share everything they've done. But I won't do that, but I'm going to share a couple of things. So in addition to all the community service events and activities they've participated in, they've held tours for our 9th graders. So before we opened in the hybrid schedule at the beginning, well, it was actually like October, November, they contacted all the freshmen, and in small groups, they were able to provide tours for those students that wanted to participate. They have a kindness team. This is one of my favorite things. They have a kindness team that focuses on kindness and wellness challenges for students and staff. They also produce the Martin Luther King Assembly for our students. They produce Tuesday talks to keep us informed of what's going on. They held a drive-by pickup so students could get their class shirts. You know how important it is for students to get those class shirts. And their Instagram and their Facebook page keep us up to date on what's happening around campus. And on those two social media avenues, they also acknowledge accomplishments. And I think that's really been positive for our students. And like I said, I could go on and on about some of the activities that leadership has done so far this year, but I'll just finish by saying that our leadership kids are really amazing. Pam Helpenstell spends a lot of time and does a great job organizing events with those students. Next slide, please. We also have been busy with our CTE student organizations and leadership activities. That Google Meet picture in the top left, it's kind of funny. It's a Google Meet and every one of the students is doing push-ups because those are the cadets and they're participating in the push-up challenge. And so that is a challenge that is, it's actually a nationwide challenge. And it's called the Vietnam War Push-Up Challenge. And the goal is to do one push-up for every name that's on the Vietnam Memorial Wall. And this week they are at 67% complete of reaching their goal. And our Rough Rider company challenged everyone to participate. So it's been really fun each week to see which classes and which clubs and which staff members have contributed to the goal of, I always have to look, 58,318 push-ups is the goal. So there's 67% there. And then also DECA just held their annual regional competition and all members that competed will move on to state. They had 2 individual first place winners, 1 individual second place, a team that placed second, and they had another team that earned 5th. And in the blue picture on that slide, you'll be able to see a list of students that participated and what events they competed in. And then on the right-hand side, we can't forget the middle school. The 4 pictures on the right are of Stevens Middle School TSA members. They're working on solar cars for state. Currently, they are in round 2 with 5 teams competing in 9 different events. They will compete in March. And I should also add that they're not just Stevens Middle School students. There are some Seaview students that are participating. They have 20 students competing, 16 entries, either individual or team, and they're in 8 different events. The one picture on the top, though, I kind of cheated. That's not really of the students getting ready to compete now. That is of the group of students that participated in Gunner's 2-week solar camp this summer. And so I had to include that because those kids came to school for 2 weeks this summer. So those are the kids that participated. And then the 3 pics on the bottom are Cyber Patriots members competing. They just did this a couple weekends ago, and this is a collaborative event between NJROTC and Susan Bettinger's cybersecurity class. The students are given scenarios and images, and their challenge is that they have to identify security risks and solve problems. And we do not have the results for that event yet, but I'm hoping to get those soon. And then the picture in the center is of our Fbla chapter Super Sweeps Award. The Fbla officers had to promote Fbla by completing 10 different tasks, and they accomplished all 10 in October. And they recently participated in their regional conference. They had 10 members compete, and all 10 qualified for state, including 2 who placed first in their event and 9 that placed second. So Fbla state will be held in April, and those 10 students will be competing at the state level. Next slide, please. So I know this slide's titled learning, but obviously learning was happening in all those titles I've shared. This is just going to be a little more focused on actual classroom. And yes, there's another copy picture. That's always kind of a joke with me and some of the staff members. But I do want to share that these students that are coming in and spending time in the DECA shop, they're really gaining valuable skills because they are trained on commercial grade equipment. They're in charge of all aspects of running a business. They're in charge of inventory control, promotions, reconciling the money at the end of the day, customer service skills, and they're going to have the skills where they can go get a job in a coffee stand if they would like, because we have so many coffee stands in this town. But in addition to the skills that they're learning, like I said, it really has been a positive motivator, if you will, for staff, because before we brought kids back to school, there was this small group that we had received approval for coming back to school. And so we got to see students every day when other staff members at other schools didn't. So it has been a very positive activity. The picture in the middle is of an emergency response student, and they are out in the field. He is learning to build a structure, a shelter, if you will, for if he was stuck in the outdoors. And the positive, one of the positive, I just lost my train of thought, sorry about that. One of the advantages of the emergent response class is that they not only earn their first aid and their CPR certification, but they also can earn that community emergency response training certification, which is referred to as CERT. And so that as he's building that structure, he's working towards earning that certification. And then you're going to see there's a couple pictures of Dan's collision welding students demonstrating his welding skills. And then below that, I had to include that picture because it's our new welding bays. We have 10 new welding bays. They are almost ready. Right now, the students are just finishing their safety tests, but within the next few days, they will be in those bays, hopefully learning and refining their welding skills. And then on the top right and bottom middle are machine shop students, and they're creating halibut points for local business. Is actually a fundraiser for the class. The table is one that a student, and I must say it's a female. I like it when we see them in these non-traditional classes. From Tim Branham's Finewoods class. She's been working on that, and she actually came in also near the beginning of the year because she didn't get to finish it last year. And that table is just beautiful. I love going up there and seeing all the different woods and some of the furniture that these students are creating. You can also see a couple pics of students. I keep saying pics, I'm sorry. You can also see a couple pictures of students practicing CPR. They are in Darlene Armstrong's health class, and they are students working towards earning their first aid CPR cards. And then, as you all know, we added a new CTE class at Stevens this year, and it's called STEM X Careers, or as the instructor Dan Lieberman likes to call it, he calls it the exciting new class. But he sent me a couple screenshots, and one is of his classroom during his Google Meet, so you can see his students all engaged. And those students have really learned a lot about some career awareness or careers they weren't aware of. They are gaining an understanding of STEM-related careers, developing career research skills, and they're being exposed to some real-world knowledge from STEM professionals because he has acquired a lot of speakers virtually, of course. He has a library of interviews that the students have access to. So it's really exciting to see all the career and college exploration events that he has been providing for his students. And last but not least, the bike. I'm so excited about this bike, and I wish the picture was better so you could see the detail. When we were on total remote schedule, one of Dan Help and Stell's collision welding students asked if he could work on a special project at home. So of course Dan agreed, and the bike is the result. The student had access to a welder at home, and so he cut out all the tubing. So basically he just dismantled the whole frame, and then he took bike chain and welded it together. He reconstructed the frame. The handlebars and the seat are all made of chain. And then he also used his painting skills from collision repair and painted the bike. I'm hoping that he gets to bring it to school soon because I want to see the real thing. So it was just a perfect example of, you know, an instructor being flexible with his curriculum and the student coming up with something that he could do. And he ended up having the equipment home. So it was just a win-win situation. And that awesome bike is the result of that. So as you can see, our kids and staff are doing amazing things. You know, just like Jeff mentioned and Superintendent Brewer mentioned, everybody's been working hard and changing curriculum and being flexible. And our kids at the high school are just amazing. And it's a pleasure to work with a staff that's just so positive and so engaged and so willing to be flexible and change the curriculum and diversify their curriculum to come up with different projects to meet the student needs. So even though it's been a crazy year, it's been a very rewarding year. And I thank you all for your support, and thank you for letting me share. Does anybody have any questions?
Anyone? I'll just say, I went to Gunner's classroom, yesterday, day before yesterday, and he had the robot that the boys and the girls have been sending back and forth to each other, and it was just hysterical. And his point was, these kids will figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they're socially distanced, they're going to figure it out. And he was so right. And the kids in there were just so wonderful and excited and happy to be there. So
Yeah.
I'm glad they're having that opportunity.
Yeah.
Okay. And you got to call out our Maisie Tucker for also working the COVID clinics. She was outside all day with all those kids, so cold. So yeah, we had lots of representation of our students, almost all of them CTE students.
Thank you, Lisa, for a great presentation.
Thank you.
All right.
Yes, outstanding job of an ever-evolving CTE and STEM program at Port Angeles High School and Middle School and Lincoln High. So great job. You know, these are business meetings, but they're also meetings of celebration. So Lisa, thank you for your leadership there and the work around the ever-evolving STEM and CTE programs.
All right. So with that, we're going to move on down the agenda to our Classified Employees Week. We have a proclamation that Director Wright is going to very kindly read for us.
Classified Employees Week Proclamation. Whereas classified school employees in the Port Angeles School District are involved in nearly every aspect of education, including maintaining school buildings and grounds, providing secretarial and clerical assistance, preparing and serving meals, providing safe transportation, keeping school facilities clean and orderly, assisting in the classroom, providing a secure environment, and many other specialized services. And whereas these dedicated individuals deserve recognition and thanks for the outstanding work they are doing for this state, their communities, and the children enrolled in Washington's public schools. And whereas there are nearly 250 classified school employees working with and helping children in the Port Angeles School District. And whereas classified school employees are instrumental in fulfilling the state's paramount duty to educate children. And whereas by supporting the learning environment, classified school employees are crucial partners with teachers, parents, administrators, and the Port Angeles School District Board of Directors. Now, therefore, Port Angeles School District Board of Directors does hereby proclaim March 1st through March 5th, 2021 as Classified School Employee Week in the Port Angeles School District and urges all citizens to join in this special observance. Signed this 25th day of February, 2021.
Thank you, Director Wright. Yeah, we heard him. The little baby crying.
Oh, you can hear that?
Oh, we did. It was very cute.
He's having a day.
I love it. All right. Well, now we get to go into the really scintillating part of the, not that this isn't, Kira, don't take offense. It's fun to listen about the kids. So now we get to learn about the money, which is very important.
All right, good evening, everyone. And I don't take offense to that. I understand. So, yeah, I heard the cries of a little someday elementary student at one of our schools, right? So I'm excited about that. I'm gonna share my screen. A little bigger. Okay. So here we are already 42% of the way through the school year. So here you can see our general fund and our capital projects and the ending fund balances of our year to date through the end of January. We're 37% revenues to expenditure, revenues to budget, and 40% expenditures to budget. So just moving right along there. Haven't had too much more activity in capital projects. Those were those expenses there you see are the last remaining bills left over from the safety vestibules. So we'll be seeing more activity there when we move into more of our capital projects work. But here, our debt services, of course, is just gaining interest. ASB, ending fund balance of $472,782. So they're still maintaining that nice fund balance and having a few fundraisers, and still have a lot of the same expenses that they would have for athletics. Transportation, so fund balance of $194,305. That was partly from the end of last year with our bus depreciation fund balance. And so at some point, I know Karen has some plans to bring another bus into the fleet, so we'll see that. Here, just a breakdown of all of our expenses by program. Again, seeing where we're at that, almost 40% of expenditures to budget. When I look here, I always look just to see what looks normal, what looks overspent, and my eye always comes to credits and making sure that that's supposed to be there. And actually, I want to just share with that. It's a good time to point out that credit of $9,500 is actually, we pretty regularly partner with people out in the community, and this just happened to be the city where we shared the cost of goalposts at Civic. And so they paid their share, they paid their half. So that's why you see a credit there in capital outlay. So we had a negative for that, for our expenses for this month. So it's always a positive. But I'm always amazed at the kinds of deals a lot of our directors make with people out in the buildings and out in the community, and I'm grateful for their connections and ability to help the district out that way. So here, comparing our expenditures from last year, other than compensation. So this is just our materials and operating costs. Here I wanted to point out the difference. It actually says that we are almost $200,000 more this year than last year. And that is actually, we paid our fall running start bill, which is about $363,000 to Peninsula to the college this in January. Last year it was paid in February. So that's the difference. So if we were going to compare apples to apples, our expenses for this month compared to last year are down 162,000. So again, everyone's doing a great job just trying to keep those costs down and save as much as we can. Here again, these are salary and benefit expenditures compared to last year. We're down 271,000 this month. So just continuing to, to watch all of that and keep our extra hours down. Watch all of our expenses and still fulfilling all of those contracts and have been able to keep people working through this pandemic. So pretty proud of that. Here's just the look at our general fund. The revenues are here at the top. We received a total of 2.8 million this year or this month. This is one of the lower months that we get in apportionment. So our apportionment is spaced out over the course of the year. January is one of the lower percentage months, so we received less in apportionment this month. And then just the expenditures, and then what we have in encumbrance this year that we're planning on paying for the remainder of the year. So that is actually a total of 90% of our budget is spoken for, so to speak. So, continue to watch that. We're at 3.5 with our fund balance, and continue to watch and protect that fund balance as much as we can. You can see the fluctuation with my projections at this point, ending a little bit above 4 million, and just continue to watch that every month and update you as much as I can. So okay, so now I'm going to move into our enrollment. Of course, I've covered that. There we go. So our February enrollment. So for our head count for February, we are down to 27 from last month. But I'll share a little bit about why in the next few slides. Our actual FTE is only down 4 from last month. So it's it's just kind of fluctuated a little bit. A lot of that, the differences between the headcount and FTE is with our running start and different classes and credits that people are taking at CVU as well. So this month I was looking at the numbers, and Marty and I always chat about numbers and talk about the fluctuation, where kids are going and when they're withdrawing, but I really wanted to know exactly where they've been coming from, and there's where they've been transferring from, where with the economy, we just don't know what if families are moving into the area, if they're leaving, if where they're enrolling. So I broke it down here, and Wendy is so great. I always go down and ask her, I have a thought, I have some projects, could you look these numbers up for me? And so she's so awesome in doing that. But here you can see this year we've had 62 transfer to Port Angeles High School or Port Angeles School District from out of state. 138 of them were from in-state. 59 of them came from homeschool, and then 27 of them came from private schools. So, and then you can just see the breakdown of where they enrolled at with brand new students. And then of course we had brand new students from CVU, and those are the ones that didn't transfer from any of our other brick and mortar into the online school. Those are brand new kids to our district. So again, I just wanted to kind of lay it out that we have had people withdraw, but we've also had people come to the area. A total of 286 kids have enrolled in our school. And then here with the withdrawals, looking at January, that first one here with 18 dropouts, I wanted to explain a little bit more about that. And that's the difference. It's the main difference in our drop in head count. So that's been accumulating. We've had students that have been enrolled and have been on our books that we haven't seen. And so, due to regulations, then we did have to unenroll them and drop them. And so, it all came together in that number there. But the good news is that we pulled those names of those students, and so far this month, 6 of those students have been re-enrolled and are active in the schools due to the awesome hard work of Kelsey and Rebecca, our family navigators that are out, knocking on doors and making phone calls. And so 6 of those kids have come back, and yeah, they're continuing to try to connect with the rest of them. One of the students did move out of the area and was able to confirm that he or she, I'm not sure, did move out of the area. So they're just going to keep, I know them, they're just going to keep, working on those 18 and seeing what they can do to help and provide services. So again, the biggest piece is a lot of families are transferring out of Washington. They're looking for work other places, or but that is the lowdown and the breakdown of our enrollment for January. You can also see the movement in between brick and mortar and CVU on, with schools opening up to hybrid. They've made the decision to go back into the schools, and a lot of them have chosen to stay too because they like the ALE program. So all right, well, that is it for me. If anybody has any questions, or I can clarify, or
And I just want to add some context to that. We had an opportunity to meet with Kelsey and Becca. And so now we're going to have a systematic approach every month to track our students that are potentially unenrolled based on attendance. And so every month we will continue to run that report and intervene face to face and encourage all of our students to talk about the options that they have now. We have Port Angeles High School, we have Lincoln High School, we have Seaview, and we have GED. And so both Kelsey and Becca are going to actively engage every month with that list to avoid, further dropouts.
Marty, as we move forward to next year, are we going to keep Seaview the way it is now with all the K-12?
We've done so Seaview will be a little different. It's a single district delivery model this year. We have completed the multi-district application thanks to the Seaview team, and Mace Gratz has done a lot of work with that as well. In the fall. So we anticipate that application being honored very soon, which will give us the ability to advertise and pull students from across the state of Washington. We applied for a 312 ALE program, but we've learned a lot about K2 this year. K2 it's a whole different experience. With our learnings, and we've done a pretty good job. I mean, it's been like building the plane as we flew it this year in K2. We're engaged in conversations about potentially K12. Director Kelly, right now the application is 312, but we may make a modification and do a K12 attempt at that. The Ingenuity program is just not what in grades 3 through 12. It's very thorough and high quality programming. The K2 is just not there. But our teachers and our staff and our administrative support staff have done a really nice job of streamlining that and making a K2 experience that we may continue to strive for that programming. So more to come on that, Director Kelly.
Thank you. I'm just concerned that if we're not, I mean, we may be in a little better situation, but parents may still decide not to send their kids back to brick and mortar, and we'll lose out on those K2s. I've heard a lot of parents who are just, they're really happy with the CView. And so it may be quite some time before they put their kids back into a brick and mortar. And then Marty, as we move down, I know we'll start to, you guys are probably starting to work on doing the budget for next year. Do you know what you're projecting the loss to be, the enrollment loss?
Projecting for end of year?
No, as you build the budget for next
Oh,
year.
yeah, we Kara and I are currently working on that. We're preparing for the board report and work session on March 22nd. We'll have a strategy on that evening for the board to consider. So yeah, we're still in the early phases of budget projections for next year.
Okay, I saw in that report, it looked like some people were returning from CView. Is that correct? Right,
Yeah.
as soon as we opened up, they were jumping back. Are you seeing that we're getting students returning from other areas? Just basically they stepped out because we shut the schools down. Now that we're up and running, they're back. Are we seeing that as well?
Yeah, we are seeing a shift from homeschool and from private schools as well. So each month there's a little bit that have come back, and then yeah, so it's they are making those different decisions, and it's interesting to see. And I chatted with Cindy today, Cindy Crum. She is going to put out a survey to all of her students, to her families, to get an idea of just what their plans are and so that's going to help a lot with enrollment questions, and that will go out March 12th. And so I was grateful to hear that, because there's a lot of unknowns out there. So we're going to continue to ask lots of questions and see what we can do about budget.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, and that data will really help us with our staffing for next year and CView. We first have to have a pretty thorough understanding of what our existing students are going to do. And then we'll have an open enrollment period for statewide recruitment of students. And so, yeah, there'll be a little bit of work to do this spring around staffing for CView. But we've demonstrated this year, we'll carry that out and we'll do it really well.
I have a question.
Sure.
So I saw that the 32 students who had dropped out were from June 2020 until now, right? I'm not sure if you know the answer to this, but do you know if that's more than what we've seen before when we didn't do online school? I'm just wondering.
I don't know off the top of my head. I'm guessing that we lost some of those students. Of course, we lost over the summer as well. And so I'd have to do a little digging for you, but I'd be happy to do that to let you know.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
And our enrollment, just so Maisie, so you understand, our enrollment reporting is Director Acker is doing some really good work around, fine-tuned details around where our students are going. And so this month, you can see where they're coming from and also where they're going. And so we can dig a little deeper into the numbers from previous years and articulate that at a future board meeting.
Thank you.
Of course, I've done that in past months, and I've just, or in past years. Last year we did that a lot. We compared this year to last year, but now we can compare the reasons. So I always like to dig into those details. I think that'll be fun. So, all right. Well, thank you, everyone. Enjoy the rest of the meeting. Thanks.
Thank you, Kara. Okay, so that is going to take us into when Jenny puts up our agenda again. All right, we're going into our action items. And the first one, this is one I've already started to get questions about, the 2021-22 calendar.
Scott, do you want to? Scott,
discuss-
oh, excuse me, I'm
go
sorry.
ahead.
Scott, do you want to enter into the initial part of the conversation here?
Sure. The calendar committee met last week, and it's made up of representatives from all of the different associations. And as you know, the calendar is part of a couple of our collective bargaining agreements. And so what is proposed here is pretty much the same as the current year's calendar. The only slight difference is the day in January there, where the semester is ending on Thursday the 27th, and the day in between the semesters that the secondary folks usually like is going to be on Friday the 28th, where this year it was on the Monday. Historically, that day has been there for the primarily, again, the secondary folks to do grades and switch between first semester to second semester. The reason that the dates were chosen as they are this year, excuse me, next year, is a couple of reasons. One, if we end the semester on the 27th, then it's 90 days first semester, 90 days second semester. Folks like that. The other reason has to do with our secretaries and where count day falls. And so if the day off was on Monday the 31st, as it kind of traditionally has been, then the first day back for the new semester is count day, and that ends up being problematic for our building secretaries. So everything else pretty much fits in as to when the federal holidays land. In October, traditionally we have our parent conferences around Halloween. So, and then we've got the one snow day built in March 14th. And again, the reason for that is that's the Monday after daylight savings time. So last day of school is scheduled for June 15th, with high school graduation being on the Friday before that. Put a couple snow days at the end there and hoping that we don't have too many.
Director Kelly moves to approve the calendar as presented.
Director Wright will second.
Okay, I have a motion, a second. Any discussion? No discussion? All right then.
You know, I have,
Oh.
you know, depends on what the legislation does this year. You know, there's all that conversation regarding changing some school days, doing some pilots, but I think it probably will affect this school year, but we may have to go redo the schedule depending on what happens in the legislation, but maybe they won't add any more days, or let us have the freedom to do what we want to do.
Okay. Katie, Katie, did you have anything?
Yeah, and the same thing as me is that, you know, at some point, I'm wondering if we won't do a more of a year-round schedule. I'm seeing that this next year may not be the year, but the other thing is that there was a lot of, I received a lot of questions about snow days from parents as, and I think I talked to Marty about it, but the question was always, why are we having snow days if we can now remote learn? So, and remote teach. And so there was kind of this, I think it's more about the parents and the inconvenience and the convenience to the parents of some of this. And so, I don't know, the snow days, I guess I'm kind of unclear on those, but I guess they still have to be in there.
And with President Methner, can I add some context to that?
Please do.
Yeah, and I've been unapologetic to that this year. You know, we have 4 built-in snow days in this calendar, and we're building in, as Scott referenced, you know, we have you know, really a 3-year agreement with the teachers and other bargaining groups, and this is a bargain part of our work. But, you know, our district has taken the philosophy, and there was some questions internally and external around why wouldn't we just transition to a distance learning day? I hold personally our in-person days as premium. I think one thing we've really learned that Yes, there are a percentage of students that can perform very well in an ALE or a distance learning setting, but the majority of our students cannot. And so, the philosophy that we adopted this year was we had 4 built-in snow days. And until we exceeded that, we would not, consider the swap or the morning switch from in-person to a distance learning day. So I think much more than the average number of students benefit much greater from an in-person learning day as compared to a distance learning day. And so most certainly that will need to continue to be part of our conversations moving forward as we evolve and learn from the pandemic and get more skilled at our delivery model. But in the foreseeable near future, my recommendation to the board is that we protect our in-person learning days and consider, distance for extreme options. And we've had those the last few years. It makes a lot of sense, that 2 years ago when we were closed 5 or 6 consecutive days, that makes a lot of sense. Last year we had, 4 or 5, or I can't remember exactly how many snow days. It makes sense because we don't want, and what I know that the staff and the community do not want, is to be in school the last week of June or, the first week of July. So I think there are some circumstances where, that philosophy that I shared with you would be trumped. But in a normal year, like maybe this year where we have 1 snow day, I think we need to do everything we can to protect the in-person learning time. That's just my.
Well, as we move forward, I would really look forward to conversations about year-round school or some version of that as well.
Noted. Go ahead, Marty.
And I think that's I think those are very valid conversations, and we do need to engage. You're hearing the OSPI superintendent starting to push that narrative. I think it's worthy of serious consideration. I think Katie hit it right on the head. Next year wouldn't be the year for that, but in years moving forward thereafter, I believe we need to have some really serious conversations around what our schools look like as far as calendar and delivery.
Absolutely. Good conversation. And the other thing, Katie, which I've always just gone back to is very difficult to just change the schedule in these calendars are a bargained issue, and to just, we just can't just decide on a day that, oh, well, we're going to go to school today when it wasn't already set out. So it's just a logistic thing that can be very difficult when you bring into the bargaining issues. So that's why I always say we just can't willy-nilly, unfortunately, even though it seems to make sense, we can't just change them. That makes sense? We can going forward decide to do it differently, but for what we already agreed to as a board last year, we have to kind of stick with. Okay. So we have talked about it. This is good. We have a motion and a second. So now we just need to vote. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed, abstentions? Excellent. 8.02 is approval of the Classified Employees Week proclamation that Jacob so kindly read for us.
Director Kelly moves to approve the proclamation.
Director Marks seconds.
And motion a second. Any conversation? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed, abstentions?
Can I add a little bit to that, President?
Please.
Yeah, so, I just want to publicly thank the work of all of our classified groups, the heart of our organization and the hard work, especially this year, just outstanding work. We do have each year for the new board members or new student reps, We have a card that all of our classified employees will get next week. We do need the board, and I think many of you have already signed, but we do need you to sign that card so that we can duplicate those. And to go with that, we have a lapel pin, which is kind of a reflection of the year. And so I'm not going to reveal that tonight because it's always kind of a surprise, but you can only imagine, you know, what kind of year we had. Last year we had a shovel because we passed the levy. This year has been a challenge, but we'll have a nice lapel pin for all of our employees to thank them for their phenomenal work, you know, for the last 12 months.
Thank you for that, Marty. I'm not tracking very well. Of course, we have big thank yous to all of our employees. And I think a shovel might have actually worked for this year too, because we just can't keep digging, but we're getting there. Okay. All right, so let's go on then with the approval of the second reading of policy 6040, expenditures in excess of budget.
Director Kelly moves the policy.
Director Wright will second.
Motion is second. Any conversation, discussion? No? Okay. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? All right. Takes us to 8.04, which is the second reading of policy 6120, investment of funds. I need a motion.
Director Wright moves to approve the second reading of policy 6210.
Director Kelly seconds.
Moved in second. Any conversation around this? Hearing none. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Passes unanimously. So we go on to 8.05, approval of the second reading of policy 6212, procurement cards.
Director Wright moves to approve the second reading of policy 6212.
Director Marks seconds.
Motion is second. Any conversation or discussion? None? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed, abstentions, okay. 8.06, approval of the second reading of policy 2100, educational opportunities for students with a parent in the military.
Director Kelly moves policy 2100.
Director Wright seconds.
Moved in second, any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, it was unanimous, and we'll move on to 8.07. 8.07, the second reading of policy 2420, grading and progress reports.
Director Wright moves to approve the second reading of policy 2420.
Director Marks seconds.
Any discussion? Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions? All right. Now we go on to community comments. Carmen, do we have any comments on non-agenda items?
No community comments at this time, President Mechner.
Thank you very much. So we go to board comments, board of directors comments. Let's start with Director Kelly today.
I did the WASDA COVID weekly meetings, which you've been getting reports for. EDC weekly meetings. I had a Washington State Native American Education Advisory Committee meeting. I had a meeting with the superintendent, which was fabulous. I attended the WASDA Legislative Assembly Zoom meeting, which I thought was okay. Probably the best part was the kids, the students. They did some great presentations. It's always good to hear from the students. It was definitely different. We got done an hour early, which was kind of nice. But and we heard the hot topics, and you've all seen that. So, and I'll let you know, or this week we should find out when they're going to have those regional meetings for us. And then I had a WASDA annual conference planning meeting, which we're hoping that we'll have it. Oh, I do have the dates too. November, I think it's 18th to 20 something in Bellevue. So, and at this point we're planning in person, which is fabulous, I hope. And we really did talk a lot about having a lot of students speak, just that way. I think we all are really needing that. And just, we have some fabulous kids out there that could, and we talked about some guest speakers. And then I did a WAS to Trust Lands committee meeting, and then I did a DNR meeting to talk about some legislative issues that we're working on. And then I've had many calls about property tax statements. So people are not happy, but I basically said it's not just the school district. It also was the pool, it also was the fire district, and just kind of talked about that when the taxes shift from the state to the local. So, and just kind of explaining that to people. I mean, just kind of said, our buildings are old and we've got to keep doing this. And there, a few people have asked me when they're going to start seeing results, and I basically said we have done some results. So, and they were, I think they felt better after they talked, but I think sometimes you just got to let them vent. So, thank you.
Thank you for that, Cindy. I think you're absolutely right with the property tax issues, and I got no calls about it, so which was interesting. Paul Gottlieb was very surprised, but we are just gonna have to keep telling our story over and over and over, and it is what it is. Let's see, I'm gonna head on to, how about Katie?
I did get some property tax calls, so I think that it's pretty easy to explain once you get into it. But I think probably my most fascinating meeting this week was just listening in on the Big Boy Pond meeting. Marty met with the group that's put together the stormwater project plan. And I've read that, I've started reading that plan. I'm not sure if any of you have. And then I did attend the WASDA update today. They talked about the legislative updates, and I think the highlight of that listening session was really just listening to the student reports. They were really powerful, and I'd like to remind Lake and Maisie that they're welcome to listen into this as well. So I thought that was good. That they both the students were reporting that it was interesting to hear kind of that statewide report out. Let's see, I met with Marty and I attended a volleyball game at our high school gym. So that was a super highlight. It was super fun, and the kids were very excited and happy. The parents did very well, being socially distanced, and I thought that it just went off. It was really well organized coming in with tickets or kind of these little key cards, and yeah, the whole thing just went really well, and the procedures were very, very appropriate. So that was certainly a highlight. So yeah, thanks.
Excellent. Director Wright.
Hey there. I've gotten a few inquiries about property taxes. Conversation usually goes with, my property taxes have gone up. I'm not seeing the new school being built, which is fine because they didn't pay attention when we were telling them the first time. But explain the process of the levy and explain that work has been being done, the security vestibules, and other projects that we've already been working on, but also to let them know that the main projects will start after we've collected the funds. So those conversations all ended well. I had a good meeting with Marty where we just discussed strategy about how things are going with the schools being open, dealing with COVID in our communities, and I was impressed with just how on the ball the administration's being right now. I know this is a really tough time to have kids in school, but I think we're doing a really good job. I mean, there was Marty did end up in a magazine along with the rest of us, so I think that we're getting some really good recognition for that. That's about it for me.
Excellent. Maisie, your turn tonight.
Okay. So like Director Marks said, I hope that all of you maybe have been able to see a live stream at least of the games that have been happening. It's just really exciting, and I'm a diver right now, swim and dive. So that's also been really exciting, just on a personal note. But I just really wanted to add that, Coach Johnson always talks about that we have student athletes. So you're a student first and you're an athlete second. And I really think not having the athlete in our lives has created an impact in some way on our student abilities. And now I'm seeing that now that athletics are back, I'm seeing some better student qualities, if that makes sense. Because having something to look forward to, having a team to rally behind you, and people to support you really makes a difference. So being at school, as you all know, I'm actually seeing more positivity than negativity, because people are able to be around one another and collaborate in ways that they weren't able to before, which is really great. I'm still saying that it's still a settling in process because this has been a steep learning curve and it's been a hard curve, but in the end, I talked to a lot of students and I think there's an overwhelming gratitude that we are back and they're seeing people even they know in Washington who aren't. And I think that creates a sense of pride as well in who we are as a school and who we are as a district. So I give big kudos to that. So I think the benefits are outweighing the negativity, but it is still something we're settling into. But yeah, that's all I have for tonight. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Lakin.
Thank you. I have to agree with almost everything Maisie says. Of course, Lincoln doesn't have their own sports team, so I can't elaborate on that. But I think with our school, there definitely has been also very big learning curve, and it's been difficult having to embrace both the challenges and the advantages of going back to in-person learning. It's definitely a large change, and I think some people are still angry that it's not exactly what they want, but then there's very grateful for being able to come back and being able to have that experience. That's all I have for tonight.
Thank you, guys. That's very helpful. I have done sort of the general things. I think maybe people are afraid of me because apparently no one wants to talk to me about their property taxes. So I don't know. Maybe I'm scary. I don't nod your head, Miss Tucker over there. I've had the agenda meeting. I got to go with Sandy to Stevens Middle School, which was fabulous and surreal at the same time because I've been in Stevens Middle School many a time as a mother watching those children through the hallways. And it was, I wouldn't want to say terrifying, but low-key terrifying. And now it's quiet and most of the kids are passing classes outside, but there's some inside. It's a different vibe entirely. And the other thing that I don't know if you're seeing this at the high school, Maisie and Lakin, but the kids are tired. We got there between just at the end of first and into second, and they're tired. And I think maybe that comes, I know with my kids who are much older, but they sleep in very late. Their whole schedule is different. And I'm not sure if we're still trying to deal with that. So it was very quiet at Stevens. I have managed to watch some volleyball, some soccer, and I've been able to actually go to some swim dive meets in person. So I haven't gone to the volleyball or the soccer in person, but I know there's a big game tomorrow night against soccer. So I paid the whatever $12 to watch it on the NFHS or whatever that is. So we'll see if I can get any of the games on that. Anyway, that's about all I've really done. And tomorrow night I'll be at the dive meet and then I'll watch the soccer match. So it'll be fun. So that's going to take us on to our superintendent's report. Superintendent Brewer.
Yeah, thank you very much. So Carmen and myself are starting to work on, and we'll take it to the PACAC meeting on Tuesday, but we're starting to work on a communication around capital progress. And, you know, we had outlined kind of touch points last year in the campaign. Year 1 being safety vestibules, year 2 being Monroe Fields, then design a Stevens, build Stevens in phase 1, design Stevens, build Stevens in phase 2. We're going to stick to that plan, and we're going to create a community flyer that outlines our progress. And so, you know, kind of green checks around, you know, tax rate, green check around safety vestibule, green check around, you know, what we're working on now with regards to Monroe Fields. So I agree with each one of the board members. We got to stay out on this messaging to our community so they understand this is an investment and this is a long haul, you know, a project based on, you know, we're not borrowing money, we're paying as we go. But the one thing I do want the board to have in your in your pocket around, you know, a concept around taxes. We promoted last year a combined tax rate of $4.12. We delivered on $4.03. And so, you know, that's again, a green check mark. We wanted to get our tax rate, and that's, as each of you know, that's a really difficult task. There's so many variables that we don't control. Biggest one is an assessed valuation. So again, we campaigned combined between EP&O and capital $4.12. We delivered on $4.03 in year 1, and I'm really proud of that. So other items I want to outline with the board: vaccinations are on everybody's radar. We had a really good plan as a county a couple weeks ago, and it was based on supply, and so the supplies really didn't come in. Kind of a change in philosophy on state allocation, and that switched that up a little bit. But I have to publicly thank the medical professionals in this region, and they're advocating for educators, and I'm really happy for that. You know, Dr. Barry, Mike Maxwell, Josh Jones, you know, they're and their organizations are all advocating to get our educators vaccinated. And I will put this on record. This is a recorded record. Educators in this county will be, as a whole, will be vaccinated well ahead of the rest of the state. You know, we're going to get it done. We ran into a little bit of a roadblock this weekend, but I believe the right people in the right spots, and we're going to get our educators vaccinated in the very near future. Really exciting news. The Seattle Times reporter called today and has been working with the Lower Elwha tribal community in Francis, and they're going to do their feature article. I think we don't have an exact date. It may be this weekend on the Learning Center at the Lower Elwha tribal land. And so that's really exciting. So look forward to that. And if our first piece was on page 1, my assumption is the second piece will be on page 1. So look forward to that. It's going to be a great celebration for the wonderful work that the tribe has completed this year around learning plans for tribal students. So really exciting. Look forward to tomorrow night, or tomorrow on Friday Notes, a draft of a K-5 ELA adoption cycle. And we're starting to gear that up and prepare the next year and a half to do a lot of work to go through that cycle and adopt a K-5 ELA curriculum. The one thing that this pandemic has really shined brightly on is our need for quality ELA, a quality ELA K-5 curriculum. So look forward to that. We are working on the final components of a middle school athletic program. There will not be a middle school athletic league this year. That's just not something, you know, as you know, other schools across our region are taking different approaches, which is fine, but we're going to have kind of a an intramural program, which will give students the opportunity to participate and engage, similar to what you see at the high school. I'm really proud of the team at the middle school putting that together. Again, it won't be quite an intramural program, but it will all be in-house, and it will have a number of seasons and 4 weeks in length, and regular interscholastic coaches. And so really good work. Again, it's easy to say we can't do that. That's the easy part. And so I like to use the phrase, let's get to yes. How do we get to yes? And Kristen and the team there at the middle school have been working really hard at advocating for this work to be done. And so I'm really excited to say that's coming very soon. And also with the new state guidance around music education, our band and choir classes have started to transition to more traditional experiences with lots of additional safeguards because, both band and choir are higher risk than regular ed experiences within a classroom. So and again, just with every item of this pandemic, we paid attention to detail. The guidance that came out from OSPI and Department of Health a few weeks ago, we looked at it, we processed it, and we checked off all the boxes to make sure that the experience in choir and band are safe, and that we can make sure that we protect, both staff and students within that experience. To include, we brought in an engineer because there's and I can't remember the technical term, I'm not an engineer, but when a class completely recycles all of its air, there's a term for it, and I can't remember what it is. But when you recycle 100% of the air, there has to be at least one cycle in both band and choir before the next group comes in and participates. So you have to completely refresh 100% of the air within a classroom. And I'm really happy to report, even with our aging buildings, our classes refresh at an alarmingly high rate, which alarming is good in that case. I believe that the air exchange rate, and I think that's the term that I was looking for, but the air exchange rate for the band room at the high school, which is not a new building, is right around 5 minutes. So think about that. That entire classroom exchanges all of that air and replaces all of it in 5 minutes. So the conversations you hear in other regions around the state, around aging buildings, et cetera, we just don't buy it in PA because schools are built to a different standard. Our schools, whether they're built in the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, they're built to a standard to bring in, in massive amounts of air and, make safe environments for students. And so even our older buildings are replacing the air at a really high rate. So that's really exciting. And again, we've proved to ourselves and others that we can do this, do it safely, and permit or eliminate the potential of transmission. And then the final piece is this. Again, I'm proud to say in Port Angeles, we're student focused. This year that's been our center stone, is we're student focused. It doesn't matter what level of this organization or who you talk to, we're about the students. And so my last report here is about SAT testing. So our high school worked with college boards and selected 3 dates for SAT testing this spring. And, we don't promote that. We share it with the college boards, and then they put it out into the virtual world or into the marketing world, and students sign up based on schedules. So sometimes you end up with a few kids from outside the region because one day works better than the next day at their home school or in their own region. Well, this year, obviously, not very many schools are doing SAT testing because, we have 100 seats available. And, you know, we have students from PA, we have students from SQUEM, we have some students from Port Townsend, but we have students from Woodland, we have students from Bellevue Christian, we have students from Issaquah, we have students, you know, a high number of students. And so what I did, you know, when we started seeing those numbers roll in, I wanted to make sure that we were square with the health department. And so I called Dr. Unthank or Dr. Barry, and I had a conversation. And so what we're going to do is we're going to honor, because we're about students. They don't have to be just PA students. Our kids need us today, and not next year and not 4 years from now. They need us now. And so if families are willing to drive out to PA, hey, we want you to come out and see this phenomenal community that we have out here in PA. It's a great place to be. But we're also going to cohort them based on regions. And so our high school is large enough that we can have, you know, a North King County, you know, cohort, and that's where they test. And we can have our students test, you know, from Clallam County in a different, you know, space. I've worked it out with Dr. Barry. She supports the program as long as we cohort, we mask, we, you know, attest, we temperature check, we social distance, and we have the staffing to pull that off. And then we're going to hire at, you know, our cost, because again, it's the right thing to do. We're going to hire our custodians to come in after the test is complete and clean our facilities, you know, so that come Monday morning, it's prepared for our students to return and our staff to return. So, you know, again, I you know, that's such a feel-good story. It's great for us to be so student focused and be able to help not only students of PA, but now students in the Pacific Northwest. Why? Because we care and they matter. So that's my report this evening, and I'll answer any questions you might have.
Anyone have anything? No? Okay. Well, that's easy then. That takes us to our items for our next agenda.
Yeah, so on our next meeting is scheduled for Thursday, March 11th. You did receive guidance or the FAQ from WASDA around in-person board meetings. There's a lot to it. I encourage you to read it. We are going to try to take that on for our next meeting, which is March 11th. One of the bigger factors will be capacity. 25% of a room capacity or 200, whichever is less. And so we're gonna attempt to carry out our next in-person board meeting at the auditorium at the high school, because the real challenge there is if we were to try to run it in a smaller room, if we reach room capacity, we have to recess the meeting. So we need to do this in a large space. So we are going to have our Thursday, March 11th meeting at the auditorium at the high school. It will be based on Zoom, you know, because you know, the other piece is because we're offering in person doesn't mean we don't have the responsibility to, you know, provide a virtual option. We still must do a virtual option. So if there are board members or members of the community that want to, you know, Zoom in or go the virtual option, that's an option. So our platform will continue to be Zoom, but we'll run an in-person meeting face-to-face, and all of the mechanics, just like we're doing tonight, will happen in a face-to-face mode, but it'll run through Zoom. So it's going to be, again, another challenge, but we're going to take that on because it's the right thing to do, and we need to get back to somewhat normal. So we're pretty excited about that. And Jared and Nolan are on board, and we'll start working through the logistics to make it all work. At that meeting, we'll have a public records report. We'll have a teaching and learning report where we'll talk a little more about the ELA adoption cycle. We'll have a Dream Playground report. We'll have a communications coordinator report. That evening, we're working on equity in our study session starting at 6. So we will have a strategic planning proposal that I'll bring to the board that evening. We have School Retirees Week, which is March 15th through the 21st, and we have some retirees coming in that evening to share their good work. And also we will recognize AmeriCorps Week, which is March 14th through the 20th. And boy, haven't they been champions this year for us. They're always champions, but they've been phenomenal, just as the rest of our organization. So with that being said, couple weeks we'll give it a try and see how it works for our school district with regards to in-person.
All right. And if there's nothing more for the good of the order, I'm going to adjourn this meeting. Good night.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you.